It wasn't me. That's not a song. Rather, it's about the dam blame game, which now begins. There's a picture of CS Mwangi Kiunjuri, David Kimosop, KVDA Managing Director, that's the Kerio Valley Development Authority, and Water CS Simon Chelugui. Men on the spotlight this morning, or under the spotlight, as detectives question the KVDA boss on how the government paid an Italian contractor 21 billion Kenya shillings for the construction of dams, but has only a thicket to show for it, and two CSs in the spotlight who have placed the blame elsewhere. Everybody saying it wasn't me. A similar story on the front page of the Standard, but the Standard also has several questions, especially to the CEO of this authority. 10 questions facing Kimosop, even as he was grilled yesterday. Who is the powerful personality claimed to have pushed for the dam projects? Who are the CSs involved in these projects? Why was over 6 billion Kenya shillings paid before the contractors moved to the site? And if you just keep reading that up until the 10th question there, given the weight of the claims around KVDA, should this MD step aside to allow for this probe? I'm sure each of my guests have been following these developments closely. The revelations are quite shocking. This obviously has also dominated discussions on social media as well. So let me get their reactions right now, beginning with Steve Ogola, who has cringed at the moment. I don't know whether he's just trying to take in everything in the headlines or those are his own thoughts. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mwiga. Mr. Rigamoro. This is not surprising. The emerging scandals is hardly surprising. This is Jubilee's legacy. That CS, the implicated CS and the Kerio Valley Managing Director is also refusing and even debating whether he should step aside. It's also not surprising. I mean, you have no sense of accountability at all. I mean, what is happening in this country is that corruption is deepening and widening. That's number one. It's undeniable. The second thing is that the president is reluctant to take firm and decisive action. It's undeniable. The third thing is that he's very high on rhetoric. That is equal and undeniable. What is the way forward? It's not a question of these people stepping aside. It's a question of political accountability, and political accountability in terms of taking responsibility means the president must address this matter decisively by firing these people. I mean, other than that, we will pontificate until kingdom come. People will continue to plunder and pilfer public resources without consequence. I have said corruption is best fought at the ballot. So the Kenyan voter must also pick his share of the blame. And in the second place, corruption is best fought through political accountability. Article 131 of the Constitution designates the president as the head of state and government. He is the one who is responsible for coordinating all government ministries and parastatals and departments. He can fire. Number three, and the least in the hierarchy of the war on graft, which is now the institution that is overburdened, is the judiciary. I have always maintained that judicial intervention is a third and least effective way of combating graft.
Least effective?
The third, a distant third, and least effective.
And you're speaking as an advocate?
Yes. Because you can't, Kenyans want instant action. You can't get instant action through judicial processes. I mean, even after this show, I'm going to court. My matters, and later, I have been in court seeking to dissolve this parliament. Since 15th August 2017, the case hasn't come up for hearing up to now. And we said parliament is unconstitutional.
Dissolve it over what? The gender
I mean, the two-third gender bill. So what I'm trying to indicate to Kenyans is that in the judicial process, you can't have a catalyzed process. You can't have quick fixes in the judiciary the way the president and the executive and the politicians want us to believe. If you want to combat and defeat corruption, you have to elect leaders who are open to accountability.
Okay.
Once elected, those leaders must hold people that they have appointed or who are responsible to them to account. And those leaders, the people they work with, and any other person, whether in appointive or elected position, must be open to account. The highest level of accountability, personal accountability, is that the moment you're scandalized, you step aside. But the Kenyan psyche, we look at public offices as an opportunity for co-option.
Okay, let's bring in Rachel here. And you raise a lot of points which we'll revisit later on in just a bit. But Rachel, what comes to your mind when you see all these things? Is the fight against graft heading in the right direction from your perspective?
First, also like as a grassroots person and as a Kenyan, I'm very disappointed. And now also like we make corruption sexy. What else is theft? And I agree with them. If you're found to any corruption accusation, you should step aside for investigation. But mostly, the way I've seen our leaders, and the way the president is like, "Mnataka nifanye nini?" It's very disappointing to see like the whole president saying, "Tunataka fanye nini" instead, and he has the power of firing them. And you can see the way it's being
Well,
also...
to be quite fair, that was 2 years ago. Now he's saying he's going to... Okay, he's been warning them that he's going to fire them, which I guess you would attribute as his latest statement. But carry on, carry on.
But you cannot be saying we have been warning them, and we have been seeing it's being normalized in a manner, the more you steal or the more you're involved in corruption, the more you're being given more power.
That's how you see it.
That's how I see it from a local perspective and as a Kenyan. So we shouldn't like use it in a manner we normalize and say, he said 2 years ago. What is different in the last 2 years ago and now? And still he was the president.
Okay. Fair point. Before the spokesperson comes in, I want to take you to page 9 of the Standard, where the Kerio Valley Development Authority have a press release. It's a full page, but there are 2 lines in particular I want to pick out. Point 6 at the bottom, they say that advanced payment is made in all contracts of this nature and is not peculiar in any way. And that is what I believe their response to the fact that money has been paid, I think at some point 3-point-something billion and then 6 billion to different providers of services. And they are saying this is normal in the kind of transaction that we are doing. That's their response. And at the very bottom of this statement, they say that in conclusion, the projects are on schedule and the contractor has committed to complete construction within the contract periods. In a nutshell, they're saying they don't see the need for all these investigations that are going on because the project is still on track and advance payments is normal in the kind of business that they're operating in. Okay, that's up to you to determine what will happen in regards to that. But police spokesperson, come in. And also, I know you want to talk about investigations in particular. And
what you will stay away from the political side of it.
Keen to see. You can go in on that as well.
Yeah, we don't speak politics. We are apolitical, but
agree.
We are part of politics because we form the most important part of the executive. I always say that the police still remains the tool of the executive because when it comes to enforcement, the persons that the president rely on is the police. You can talk about any other agencies, but the person that the police, the head of state relies on for maintenance of law and order, prevention of crime, all sorts of crime, is the policeman. Though I know Kenyans have not given police...
Kenyans would want an completely independent police
Kenyans
force.
have never given police the standards that a policeman ought to be. For example, if you're a lawyer and somebody finds you to be a policeman, say, what are you doing here? It expects the police to be somebody substandard. If you're an engineer and they find you in police, they wonder, what are you doing here? So Kenyans would prefer to have a low quality, low level police service.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
Yes, that is true.
And
You remember when we...
Right?
No. I'm just starting the moment for you.
That's the opening statement.
You guys are young. You remember when we increased our minimum recruitment level to just a minimum of a C plane. It was a big issue and it had to be brought back to D+. That's notwithstanding. Our duty as police and more so criminal investigations department is to work on factualities. You cannot deviate from a fact. And as an advocate, he knows that a fact is anything or state of things capable of being perceived by senses. You can see, isn't it? You can fail. So the position is very simple. If anybody committed offense in all this, then the DCI should be able, I'm sure in a week or 2 weeks' time, to demonstrate to us who did what. Because commission of offense, you can have a very good project even to completion, but maybe bribery is involved. It's still an offense.
Whether the project is on track or not.
Whether it is on track or not, and maybe bribery is involved, there is an offense. Maybe there is escalation of costs and prices, is still an offense. So I'm sure that the DCI is on this, and he has proven to you that he has no boundaries. He's capable of arresting anyone. So it is not the president to blame. It is us who are entrusted with doing undertaking this responsibility, investigating and arraigning people before court. As much as he says that it takes too long for a judicial process, but for us who are policemen, that is what we...
What do you think about his sentiments, in regards to the judiciary? It's the third line of defense, the least. He's almost saying, don't think of the judiciary as your first line.
It depends on how it depends on how you look at it. For example, within the police, when we arrest you, we have to take you to judiciary, so that they can decide, so that the person is given an opportunity to defend himself. We don't have that authority to say you should be jailed. You must go through the judicial process. But whatever he was talking about was political, on a person with appointing authority and firing authority. But he must also understand that, as he puts it, politics means a lot. You will not just wake up and fire people. The president, I think, in his wisdom, would want us to come up clearly so that nobody comes up and say you are discriminating or you are charging particular persons. So he also relies on us to come up with very clear facts that maybe he can use, because everybody, you remain innocent until proven guilty. But on the political side of it, we have no authority. It is his prerogative on who to appoint where and what to do. But we have a big responsibility at the police service. And the only thing I can say is that Kenyans should raise the bar of a policeman. The same thing they have done in the military. The bar in the military for you to become a second lieutenant is so high. It's not ordinary. If you find colonels, you find colonels of the same level. If you find brigadiers, you find brigadiers of the same level. So my appeal, because as we are getting old very fast and we'll be soon out of the service, but my position is that Kenyans must decide to have one of the best, one of the top brains. We must have the best brains in the police service. There's no two-way about it. Police is not a dumping ground. It is not a place to take people who have failed. It must be one of the top institutions.
Is that what has happened in the past, in your view? Sorry, you're just raising so many questions.
Yeah, maybe we'll come
to you. You want a one-on-one?
That will take
no, from history, if I look at the policemen of 1950 and 61, they were top police officers. Kanyotu joined police in 1959 from Makerere University. My first commissioner of police, Hinga, joined police in 1955 from Alliance.
But now you don't think they're up to standard.
What?
You're not very happy with the caliber of policemen that you have right now, because that's
if you ask me, if I compare, you would want to ask yourself, why are we still getting people heading police from other departments? It shows there's no confidence
in the police.
Yes, we have had us led by a military officer. We have had us led by an officer also not directly from the police. And that shows that there is no confidence in us. And that is what I'm saying, that we must break it. We must have the best brains as we move forward. Not that we don't have. We have. But we are saying that the impression, you will find our next discussion, which is coming.
Yeah.
You will find the impression of Kenyans about us, especially in your next discussion of extrajudicial killings and what it means. So what I'm saying is that fight against graft or order in the country. The country must think to bring the best to fight this graft.
All right, hold that thought first. Njoki, before we come to you to get your sentiments, we have a caller from Mombasa, Ibrahim. Ibrahim, good morning. Go ahead with the
Good morning, Jabari.
Yes, endelea na swali lako.
Mimi nilikuwa nataka kukuambia hivi. Unajua hapo tunazungumza mambo mengi, lakini corruption haiwezi kuisha katika Kenya.
Kwa nini?
Kwa sababu ya nini? Unajua pia sisi wa Kenya tunaiba mpaka mbio. Unakumbuka kuna jamaa alijificha kwa petrol station wakati wa marathon Nairobi, akakuja akasema anataka kuwa namba 1 hata akushinda. Tunaiba mpaka mbio. Kitu ya pili, hata unamwona huyo uniform amevaa, hiyo mpya hiyo. Sisi hatukuambia wananchi, hatukuambia imekosti pesa ngapi. Tutakuja kusikia hiyo scandal inatoka pia, tutakuja kuitafuta. Kwa hiyo sisi hatuwezi, kwa sababu serikali iliyoundwa ya Jubilee, mimi nalaumu sana kwa sababu ilikuwa ni katika Kiswahili kizuri inaitwa kwako kwangu. Wewe uchague huku, mimi nichague huku. Wewe uchague huku, mimi nichague huku. Corruption ilianzia hapo. Kila mtu anachagua mtu wake wa kumtafutia.
Kwa hivyo solution ni lipi basi?
Solution sasa ambapo iko hapa, kwanza mimi solution ambayo mimi na sana upande wa investigation. Watu ambao wanafanya investigation, nataka kumwambia wino watu ambao namlaumu sana kwanza hiyo upande wa polisi. Investigation ndio inatupeleka chini, hata chama ya judiciary. Investigation unakuta mtu ana kesi, lakini yule polisi anafuata yule mtu ambaye anashtakiwa. Wewe mimi nimeshasikia hii kwa hapa, wacha tugeuze hapa. Investigation is not weighted down in Kenya. Okay. Investigation.
All right. Asante sana. That's Ibrahim Madenge from Mombasa, and he says it's the investigations part that fail us. But before you respond to that, yeah, let's bring in Njoki and find your views on this. I know you've talked about this for a while.
No, I mean that's not the issue. There's some things that you have to continue talking about them. We can't get tired. I do want to say something to respond to Mkubwa here as regards. I don't think where we are right now as Kenyans, a grade or the school you went to or the university you went to is the best gauge of what kind of brain somebody has. And that's the reason we have things like bridging courses. So for instance, if we say that there are ways to compromise on a lot of some of these things. So if we say that entrance at this thing is a D, I don't think we should be punishing somebody for a D for their whole life, because a D is one gauge of who you are. There are multiple intelligences. One needs to become a police officer, and I'm sure that he is able to tell us that. It's not just book smarts, it's street smarts, it's a whole lot of other
emotional
things.
Smarts.
A lot of things that you have to learn on the job, etc. And that, I mean, the assumption that I'm making is that everybody who is in the police was chosen deliberately, that there's a process that gets in people and then that lets people go as we make sure that we have the best force that we have. So, and we should talk about like this idea of grades and brains and university access, especially in a country where university access is designed to take in as few people as possible. We don't have all the people who have qualified to go to university actually being able to go. We even have problems at the level of getting into Form 1. Right? So we can't really...
Although would you say designed to let in as few people?
Yes, I would say that. I would say that deliberately. Yes.
So you believe there's a planner somewhere who is happy?
Or is it based on the
I feel like you're pushing me towards like being the person that has a conspiracy theory, and that's really not what I'm doing.
But design speaks of a theory.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not letting in as many people as we could.
Okay. Okay.
And so for me, I'm not necessarily a believer that all design is active. There's some things that are designed passively as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, but we can go back to that another day, because that I think is a universe of things, that particular topic. And also the idea of honor being accorded to people for earning certain grades at one point in your life. I did my KCSE in 2002. Should I be honored forever for what I got, or dismissed forever for what I got there? And Kenyans have so many stories of people who've been able to pick themselves up from a grade that wasn't necessarily the best, and they've built lives and careers that are not necessarily dependent on what somebody got at that point in time. So it's not the only gauge of value of a human being, or of their intelligence, or of their value to society, what they can add and bring to it. So, I mean, but this is a thing we can discuss later. And I'm not in disagreement with the police spokesperson. Let's say that. I'm just kind of trying to widen the thought from the side of listening to the idea of value for grades. And value for grades is accorded to people like me. Right, because I have doctor before my name,
yes.
Right? But then when you see that value for grades is accorded to me, but it's taken away from somebody else in a country where we're supposed to have equal access to things, then you start finding that's where the problems begin, where we start according privilege to some people and not to others. Now, let's talk about this corruption thing. Kenyans are being turned into algebra experts. And when I say that, I mean, we are told 2 billion is missing, solve for X. So now the country goes into a furor. Like, who has taken away what from this side of the equation? This one has come from where? This other one on this side, etc., etc. And then now we all become... Meanwhile, another equation is being formed for us, and the exam is never ending, right? We've reached a place where money disappearing is a normal thing. But all of us, like even at the level of my home, I know that disappearing money is not a thing. If I had 1,000 bob in my pocket and it's gone tomorrow, of course it went somewhere. So the idea of money just kind of vanishing or evaporating into the ether, and this is a media narrative. It's being pushed by media. When you say money has disappeared, of course money has not disappeared. It was taken, and it went somewhere, because money doesn't vanish.
Doesn't grow legs.
It wasn't burnt on a funeral pyre. You know what I mean? We didn't have a funeral to say buy 2 billion shillings, buy 7 billion. Right? So instead of turning us into mathematicians, which again, we are tired and we are bored, we just want to be given good health care, we just want good education, we just want good public transport, we just want the police to be given more budget lines so that they can hire more people, because they're horribly understaffed. If we ask him how many more people they need to hire, he laughs because he knows. But we're not giving him money to do that. Right? Just basics. Basic public goods. That's what we want. We don't want to be told solve for X. That's not our job. And the other thing that we're not really talking about, and that I really disliked, somebody who was it you who said that Kenyans are to blame for electing graftious people. People become graftious upon election because now they have access to things. It's not us who go out of our way to see who is so corrupt that now we must elect them. That's not how it's working. And if anything, now the thing that we should be talking about is how do you give us more power to be able to see somebody here is a problem, can we approach them now? Now, here in the middle of the term. Because a lot of times, wait, we're not going to interrupt me. A lot of the times we find that people, there's a safety that you have. It's like, wow, now these 5 years are now mine. Vis-a-vis understanding that you are employed by the people.
Yes,
the people can remove you. In fact, one year and 7 months into your term, we can actually remove you. So now those are the conversations we should be having. How do we remove people, right? Okay. And then maybe let me just say 2 more things. I feel as though this conversation where we are asking people to be morally compelled to step aside, no, or we are asking, can the president force people to step aside?
He can't interrupt you, but I can.
No, I don't want you to interrupt me.
Okay, he can't, but I can.
I feel like these conversations about people, you want people to feel like they should step aside. That's really not where we are as Kenyans.
Okay. How do they do it in other countries? Are they aliens? Are they different from us?
I'm not interested in how they do it in other countries. I'm interested in the end point here, which means that if you're accused of a thing, you go. It should be written in a law. It should be written in a law, and we should maybe even harken back to the things where you swear to be etc, etc.
Is it not in Chapter 6 of our Constitution?
Then now we should ask ourselves, how is it that you can still be in an office when you're obviously in breach?
Okay.
All right. Let's get a caller from Mombasa as well, Abdul, before we come to Charles Owino and also Steve to respond. Abdul, good morning.
This one.
Okay, good morning.
Yes, go ahead with the comment or question, Abdul.
Okay, my comment is, corruption in Kenya starts with us, you see? You see, even some parents,
yes,
they send their kids to the shop, then they tell them, okay, buy me this, then I'll give you 10 bob. Buy me this. That's corruption.
Okay.
So it's a mentality as a country. Then the leaders elect. You see, somebody is being implicated in a corrupt issue, then that leader becomes so famous and gets a position like a governor or a senator or something. So if somebody says, if I get corrupt, the media will hype me, and if they hype me, I get that limelight, then it gives me the power to get into an office.
So you think corruption starts from the family? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, from the family. And also the media nowadays is just hyping this corruption issue. It's becoming like a thing. We're talking about corruption Monday to Monday.
So what is your solution then? What do you think is the solution from where you stand?
Okay, my solution is like we are now embracing so many things from China. You see Mr. Owino there is wearing a China uniform, right? In China, if you get corrupt, you're hurt or killed. So let's also do that because we're becoming China like a country. So let's make corruption. If you're found corrupt, you are given a gun, you're also killed.
Okay,
so people shy away from doing corrupt practices.
Okay, I may not have heard everything you said, Abdul, but thank you for that. But he's basically also referenced the China example, and that's coming up quite a bit.
Yeah, and earlier on, Ibrahim mentioned that it's the investigations part that is failing us. But Steve wanted to respond to what Dr. Njoki was saying before she stopped me from interrupting her.
Not necessarily respond directly. Let me clarify this.
Okay.
Governance is organized at the ballot. I mean, Article 4 of the Constitution declares Kenya to be a sovereign republic. And the Republican form of government is organized at the ballot. You have an opportunity to put in leaders that match the vision ordained by the Constitution. What does the Constitution require? The Constitution requires people who are open to transparency and accountability. Whom do you elect? I mean, you can't excuse yourself from accountability as a voter. You can't. This country lacks what I call civic virtue. You have no sense of accountability, personal accountability. We know during election campaign period that money, as they say, quote unquote, was poured. You know, money has the twin potential of facilitating candidate emergence. So you need money to run as an election. But money also has the evil potential of disrupting public choice processes. It's a fact. I mean, if I have money, you don't have money, I'm almost in a country that is influenced perception is influenced significantly by deployment of resources. I stand a better chance of getting elected than you because I have a lot of money. I can continuously bombard you with information and use it to alter your public choice processes. And we are telling Kenyans, governance, you can't go, I mean, there's no other way to explain it. Governance is organized at the ballot. The people you choose must be people that are as close as possible to the transparency and accountability that the Constitution intends to inspire. Once these people are in office, and you know you are elected on a platform of openness, accountability, transparency, then there will be that ripple effect. Your philosophy will begin to radiate. But I'm saying that there's a critical disjunction between the law as ordained, because if you look at our Constitution as a visitor into this country, it is eloquently drafted. And you'd imagine that it's one of the best governed countries. But the reality of the implementation of that law expresses a serious disjunction between the law as we know it and the law as it is. Why? Because leaders in those offices do not influence or inspire the kind of change the Constitution hoped to achieve. Because they have failed to influence and inspire, the public officers, including the ones appointed, have been co-opted into that philosophy. What is the philosophy that forms our lived reality? The philosophy informing our lived reality is a philosophy of co-option. Co-option into what? Co-option into the club of resource managers. If I'm appointed as the CEO of IBC, for instance, you would expect a certain segment of the society, perhaps where I come from, to start reimagining how my position in that office will benefit them. In terms of employment, in terms of election management, they would want to say that because one of our own is in that office, this time round, Baba is taking it, for instance. You know, if we share the same social extraction. This is the kind of philosophy that underpins our governance sector. Yeah. This country, in short, Mr. Ega, is stranded. Anybody who argues the contrary is only delaying the reality. We are stranded at the margins of time. You can't tell Kenya post 2010.
In your view,
way out,
if there is a way out.
I mean, the way out, in terms of the elected elite, the ruling elite, they need to abandon the culture of corruption. They need to abandon bad manners. They need to abandon.
It's only them who can.
For the leadership.
Okay.
They need to abandon the culture of corruption, and for those who are being governed for this duration up to the next election, you need to heighten vigilance, public vigilance, and demand for accountability. Knowing that vigilance and the demand for accountability, there would not have been this press release if there was no vigilance. So I thank the media and I thank Kenyans who are relentless in requiring accountability. You can't be paid a down payment and several months later you've got broken ground.
Okay. I think
people
I break
must ask. No, hold on. I have to tie this conversation.
Okay.
We need 5 seconds
people,
only.
listen, people must ask, so that is okay. Towards the end of this government, what Kenyans must do, you must have a conversation with yourself at a personal level. I am liberated. I have never complained because I know how I voted. You must be able to account to yourself at the next ballot the kind of person you want. If Kenyans are liberated in their mind,
in a nutshell, as you
you'll
spread
get
your
a better
bed,
way.
so you must lie on it.
Exactly.
I need to say something about civic processes, and we cannot enter civic processes at the level of the final election. We need to start entering them at the level of the party. And so there's a lot of shenanigans that then kind of give us the cream of nonsense that a lot of times we find happening at the ballot, when the point in time at which we should have influenced the process is way before. So instead of blaming Kenyans and saying that you guys are the problem, we should be asking ourselves, where are the gaps that are preventing us from engaging at party level? Do we need to become members of parties? We need to start having those types of conversations, and we need to start having them now instead of when there are all the shenanigans, party brawls, and because we saw those things in 2017 when people are brawling outside party headquarters, etc. So I feel like instead of looking just at the net effect, we should start looking at everything that feeds into the whole.
Okay.
I think I need to assure you and Kenyans, the DCI is just 1 year into office, and I think he has done quite a lot so far. And I tend to know him as a person in understanding because we've grown up together. I want to assure you that all these persons who are involved in graft, given opportunity, they will all be charged, and there will be nobody who will be left. I don't think he's in that class of a person who will want to leave people. He has a very good background, having grown up as a person who wanted to be a priest in Catholic, and is committed to law and order. So I can assure you, I want to be disapproved in another 6 months if most of these matters are not handled.
And in your view, because you speak of someone you've worked with, you've even grown up with,
yes,
he is able to operate independent of any pressure,
yes,
even from the highest officers in the land.
He is, and he's a kind of a person who would not mind resigning from that position if somebody tries to influence his mind. I know DCI Kinoti that he would not mind leaving that position if you try to influence him. I want to vote purely for that.
Okay.
Is a very good. That's a strong endorsement. Yes, yes.
We'll talk about it the next couple of months.
Yes, I will be able to defend that if I'll be in a position to do that, and you'll be able to see that. I wanted to come back to what she said.
You know why I want you to hold? Because I want her to finish.
I want to finish. Allow me
to
finish something on what she said.
Briefly then.
The nature of our work, we don't need to recruit people with degrees. The nature of our work, we only need to recruit intelligent people. A police officer is always faced with situations where he has to act on his own without time to refer to his books or his superiors. And that means great intelligence amongst the police officers.
Yes.
And we have a number of colleagues who even never got opportunity to go to secondary school, but they were brilliant. They even did very well in primary school. They have come up, some of them have risen even to the level of assistant inspector generals. But the only problem is that basically, even for example, when you go to military, the reason why grade is important is so that when you are moving towards developing people to management, if you go for probability, if you take people with A grade and people with D grade, the probability that the 10 with A grade, 6 may, only 4 may fail to sustain to management level. The people with D, you may find only 1 or 2 making it to the level that you want. So that is why even in the military,
these are things you've seen in the
that is why even in the military where we take very good grades, for example for cadets, you find as they grow, quite a number fall, especially those ones who cannot be able to catch up with the standard. So it's not a matter of very high grades.
This is a very good thing.
We need to wrap this up now and then get into the main discussion.
But finally, before she
just
comes
5
to that,
seconds.
yes, I just want to say that as police, we have to continue doing our work. Okay. We still need to remain political to ensure that we provide the best. The only thing I would say is that we need to, it is us to give police a good name, because we have institutions that are managing so many issues to do with police discipline currently. Okay. But Kenyans also have a very big role to support their police service and only come in where there's a mistake and ensure that that mistake is corrected. Remember, we are a very large family. Now we are about 100,000+. And 100,000+, I've always said that even in the family of a bishop, you will find one who may not be up to the moral standards that people expect a son of a bishop to be. So even us, you will find one of us or two of us making mistakes here and there. Okay. But that does not mean that you condemn the service, because if you do that, if you condemn the service, then what happens is that the gap in terms of mistrust widens. Okay. And when the gap for mistrust widens, what will happen is that the police, the public will not be able to give us information. Okay. And we cannot succeed.
We get into that discussion in just a bit.
I've not finished with my uniform.
We'll get into
that's what we are coming to.
I just want to mention one thing. No. Our CS has put it very clearly that we are not importing any material or any uniform. Under the Agenda 4 is promoting the textile industries, and all our uniforms will be procured locally. All right. They will be manufactured locally and be procured locally. Agreed. So I don't want anybody to be worried that you will get a scandal. I hope there will be no scandal